The controversy arose in the 50s around the so-called bracero program, which was a guest worker program for agricultural workers from Mexico. The growers who were hiring these workers, they preferred undocumented workers because they had fewer regulations governing their treatment. But this became an embarrassment to the Immigration and Naturalization Service because they wanted the farmers to only take the contracted braceros, and it was embarrassing to them that there were so many so-called illegals coming over. So the Commissioner of Immigration, Joseph Swing, concocted this big plan to round up and deport the so-called wetbacks, right? Wetback was an ethnic slur, really. It was the idea that people swam the Rio Grande to come over illegally, right? So it was called Operation Wetback.
In California's rich Imperial and Coachella valleys, guards round up Mexican workers without identity cards and start them on the road back home.
In 1954, the U.S. government deported massive numbers of undocumented Mexican laborers, most of whom were working on farms near the border.
These people were just rounded up, put on trucks and buses, driven over the border, dumped on the other side, sometimes in the desert. In one case, 88 people died from sunstroke, and more would have died had the Mexican Red Cross not come to their rescue.
According to Professor Nye, the mass deportation operation lasted about a year. It became expensive to maintain, and American agriculture growers had begun to comply with a federal program to hire Mexican workers legally, leading them to use fewer undocumented laborers. At the time, the Eisenhower administration said it carried out over 1 million deportations, but historians now believe many people were deported more than once and that the real number of people is significantly less. 2 historians told us that some U.S. citizens were mistakenly deported as well. Tom Homan was acting director of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement during the first 2 years of the Trump administration. We asked him about the connection between Trump's campaign pledge and Eisenhower's operation at the border.
You know, former President Trump said that this plan would follow the Eisenhower model, that it would follow so-called Operation Wetback.
I don't speak for President Trump, and I don't know what the Eisenhower plan even is.
The historians that we spoke to call it a civil rights disaster. People were deported in dangerous conditions, and some people died. If President Trump is saying that that's the model, that gives a lot of people
President
pause.
Trump's not talking about. Look, I know this man. There ain't no
Following
way.
the Eisenhower model,
way.
we will carry out the largest domestic
But that
deportation
doesn't
operation in
mean
American
people
history.
are going to die. Okay. That doesn't mean civil rights are going to be violated. The President Trump doesn't mean that.
But you could understand how someone might.
Well, he could
think
say
that?
he's got the Eisenhower plan was a massive deportation, but it doesn't mean all the negative things that happen are going to happen under his leadership.
You look back in the 1950s, you look back at the Eisenhower administration, take a look at what they did, and it worked.
Well, today you have...
Professor Nye told us that it would be even more difficult now than in the 1950s to conduct a mass deportation of undocumented immigrants.
They're not Mexican workers. The large numbers of people who are crossing the border are asylum seekers. They're fleeing civil war, civil strife, gang violence. There's just too many. It's very expensive. Today, they don't live just at the border. They live in our cities. They live in states all over the country. They've been here 5, 10 years. They have children, maybe who are citizens. They're part of our society. So you can try to have a big show, but ultimately you don't solve the problem. You hurt some people, and then people don't look anymore, and the problem doesn't go away.